Daniel says, I am loosely connected to a few religious orders committed to the traditional liturgy and who are trying to live out an authentic Catholic life. My question concerns how monasteries throughout the history of the church dealt with the latest technology of their day. Would monasteries, say in the 9th century, 14th century, or 19th century, have consciously tried to avoid the use of the latest technology available to their society? It's a question a friend and I were recently pondering as we discussed the different degrees to which religious orders today interact with modern technology and conveniences. I tend to favor more of a Luddite approach, but am now wondering whether that's just a fake LARPing idea of the attitude of monks throughout history.
Yeah, it's a fake LARPing idea, and I
Okay.
don't say that just to be snide, although I'm capable of saying things like that just to be snide. No, the thing is, you got to bear in mind that traditionally the monasteries were actually at the forefront of scientific advance. There were reasons for this. For one thing, in the beginning, they were the ones who preserved all of the scientific documents. And when we're talking about scientific advance, remember, we today basically think of porn for everybody as the fruit of scientific advance. But in reality, uh, new agricultural techniques, for instance, very often the monasteries came up with them first. Um, and I don't need to tell you about Mendel and genetics. They the fact is that when it came to pure research, they tended to really go in for it, and not just the monastics. The think of scientists of their day like Roger Bacon and Robert Grosseteste, who were devout Franciscans, or Saint Albertus Magnus, another scientist of sorts. Um, so I think the real question is not scientific advance or technological advance. It's, of course, what the specific thing is and how it's used. So, for instance, if I were running a monastery, nobody would have uh, access to the internet without supervision. And I'd be the same way. If I were a father, I'd be the same way with my children. You know, if you made a rule that whenever the computer is being used, there have to be two or three other monks in the room, that would cut down a lot on problems. Um, but see, they've always had to deal with this. I mean, it's the same with publications. You know, with newspapers and magazines and books and all these things they were developed. There's a reason why they have the index of prohibited books, uh, and why dioceses had the censor librorum. But um, just as we were saying earlier about uh, censorship and free speech, so too with technology. Uh, Catholic hospitals, very often run by Catholic orders in the old days, made a number of medical advances, and they were, you know. So I mean, you were very perceptive to catch the LARPer in yourself. Uh, we have to remember that we don't live in the Renaissance fair.
Yeah, I wonder to what extent that's just some of the poison, the anti science church poison that's kind of dripping into that area, you know?
Well, I mean, the problem is, and it's a real problem, is that scientificism, has become a religion of its own. And a lot of Catholics have been infected with it. And so the response is, well, it's all evil. I mean, mutatis mutandis. If you really want to get people going, and I think this is a great illustration. It's the heliocentric versus the uh, uh, geocentric argument. I mean, personally, I don't think it's an argument that really can be settled. Um, at least I can't settle it. But I know it's wrong for believing Catholics to castigate each other for holding the other view. Now, I think the geocentrists, when they speak about the effect that that heliocentrism had on the faith and on culture, they're quite correct. That's an historical fact. It doesn't tell us which one is correct, objectively speaking, or, for that matter, if one can say. We don't really know what the universe is in terms of its extent or its size or anything else. I mean, they say it's constantly expanding. Well, how do you measure that? And what is it expanding into? I don't know. Similarly, when you have creationists fighting the theistic evolutionists, I uh, I have a problem with evolution because of what I know about genetics. It doesn't seem to me that it doesn't seem to me that Darwinian evolution or any other kind like that, macroevolution, can occur because of the seemingly limited number of options that genetics give one. But um, the other problem I have, of course, was the one brought up by the dinosaur bones of Mary what's her name, uh, because either way, it messes up completely what we think we know about paleontology. Whether the dinosaurs lived much more recently than we thought, or whether organic matter lasts a lot longer than we thought. Either way, we're wrong, and it blows the construct that paleontologists have been working with. And of course, when I say that, inevitably someone will say, "Oh, so you're saying the world was created in 7 days in 4004?" No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know, but more importantly, you don't know either. You've been teaching this dogma, which is what it is. And what I'm saying is you can't possibly know from the evidence as it is. You can't prove your points. So in a murky area like this, just as I think it's wrong for heliocentrists and geocentrists to throw doubt on each other's Catholicity, I say the same for creationists and theistic evolutionists. I'm not saying don't argue the points. I'm not saying, but argue the facts. And above all, don't be bitter over it. You know, uh, if you could say the four creeds, and I can say the four creeds, then we have the same faith. And whatever else we disagree on is secondary to that. Even if I'm right and you're wrong, whichever side you and I are on whichever of these things it is, if I castigate you as being somehow heretical or even less Catholic than I am, I'm wrong. And I've certainly lost to whatever charity I had, unless I'm still giving to the March of Dimes, in which case maybe. But no, I mean, and that's something I feel very strongly about. You know, I feel very strongly about people excommunicating each other and jumping up and down in areas that are not dogmatic. And I realize too, before anyone jumps on me, that these things do have dogmatic implications. I understand that. But if there appears to be a difference between religion and science, number one, you go with religion on the surface of it simply because that's what's revealed and the other is not. Secondly, you don't believe the science, you test it. That was a big problem during the whole COVID thing with Fauci's face or whatever it is he talks out of, yapping about how you have to believe the science. No, no, you don't. You don't believe the science any more than you test the dogma. It's the other way around. You believe the dogma, you test the science. You see, dogma is revealed, it's absolute truth. But anything that is not revealed truth is really and truly up for grabs. And if you can prove a better case than I can, then you have, or then by all means do it.